This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
All right, how you doing, Ira? How you feeling?
I'm good here in the Bahamas, getting ready to go to the second of the Heat's 5 training days here. 21 players in camp, still trying to figure it all out. But I guess in the South Florida hierarchy of where teams stand, they probably not only are ahead of the Marlins, but at the moment ahead of the Dolphins also. So still in chase mode with the Panthers and certainly with the Canes football team, but at least positioned to maybe make a little more noise.
Inter's number 2 in town, not number 3. They're ahead of the Canes. Inter. Okay, let's not leave Inter out there.
Let's see it in the playoffs. Let's see it in the playoffs.
What? I mean, they're going to win the Supporters Shield. All right.
But this is America, where regular season means nothing.
I get it, but they have proven they are the best team in the league, and so that with or without Messi,
which is impressive. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So Tata showed me what Spo has done billions of times, and what Mike McDaniel can't do anytime.
And you know what? And one other thing before we segue, and what Campagna has shown in his own way to help the team keep the team afloat and get to the all-time scoring lead there. It's the little things also. It's like you and I talk about when he'd have players out in the best seasons, guys step up, they make a name for themselves. We've seen that a little from Campagna this year also.
Oh, God, he would be a starter in so many teams, and he's been a pro. I commend him because sometimes these young guys may not handle that situation. Like, yo, dude, I was scoring. I was your leading scorer. Why are you going to put me on the bench and all that? And he has not, acted that way. He has appreciated it. And I think he kind of takes it in like, man, I get to play with some of the best ever and get to learn from those guys. And he knows he only has to buy his time for another year or two. And then he becomes the guy, again. So everybody knows that. So I think it's a cool thing. Yeah, I've been very impressed with Campana and a lot of the young guys that are on that team, and they've done a marvelous job in the front office. And that's where, your front office and your coaching staff have to it has to all marinate and come together. And we don't see it happening with the Dolphins, but we constantly see it happening with the team that you cover. And that's always important. So the question is,
okay,
will it all marinate and come together with Jimmy Butler from the get-go?
It's almost like the daily Jimmy Butler temperature chart. He is very good so far, 3 days in, of saying the right things. Right. I don't give a rat's ass about saying the right things. I want to see the right things. Last year, Jimmy Butler did not spend one single minute on the court for the Heat in the preseason. Now, I'm not a preseason guy. I know these games are jokes. They're ripoffs for fans and all that. But if Jimmy Butler wants to set a tone for what this Heat season can be, wants to let players know he's going to have their backs and he's going to be there, then yeah, Big O, I want to see him out there in the preseason. I want to see him, even Eric Spoelstra said, we need to see what Jimmy and Tyler and Terry look like together along with Bam. Those are our 4, almost like he gave us 4/5 of a starting lineup. So I'm not going to overstate preseason, but I think Jimmy Butler's active presence in the preseason will be meaningful based on how last season ended with his absence, based on how last season ended with only 60 games played during the regular season.
All right, but he's not going to go play dominoes till 5 a.m. now in the Bahamas, right? He meant that he was going to come back to the Bahamas another time in the offseason.
No, he's a late night dominoes with Jimmy. But I got to tell you, if you went back to his Instagram yesterday, Tyler Herro was over at the home that Jimmy's renting here on the island. And again, if Jimmy's going to be more of a team player, if he's going to get involved more with teammates, I'm all for that. You know what, Big O? It was really interesting last year. When with Udonis Haslem gone, the Heat had to pick a new captain. It was Bam Adebayo, and that's fine. The fact that it wasn't Jimmy Butler, the leading man, told you a little bit about the relationships and machinations inside this team. So for me, to see a case where you see Jimmy interacting with teammates a little more, just training camp, just the preseason, that's meaningful, I think.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. Although he did dodge the question, I think Barry asked him about Riley's thing. about, not talking about Boston and New York being in the playoffs. And he said, well, I don't worry about the things in the media, but that had nothing to do. He didn't answer the question. He never really addressed it directly about what Riley said.
But Big O, does Jimmy want, or did Jimmy want an extension? Of course he did. Did Pat Riley let him know he was not getting an extension? Of course Pat Riley did. This is the politics going on. This is the back and forth. The Heat's whole way has been everything behind closed doors. But if you open your mouth about an extension, we'll talk about that. I think Jimmy is realizing, you and I talked about this a lot on our accurate Pembroke Pines reports. Jimmy is no longer dealing from a position of strength. Maybe 25-year-old, maybe 30-year-old Jimmy Butler could. At 35 years old, this is the way of the world, my friend. You lose a lot of leverage. The Heat have the leverage. Jimmy has to regain the leverage. How do you do that, Big O? You say the right things, you do the right things, and most importantly, you show up for work.
Yeah. And really it's about a half a season to prove that you're doing the right things, because if not, although if there's a, if he's not playing well and he's injured or whatever, then it's going to be hard to trade him midway through the season. But that's
right. It's like you and I have said, it's win-win. If Jimmy plays well, it's good for Jimmy to get his next contract. If Jimmy plays well, it's good for the Miami Heat to either be able to trade him or to be able to feature him. So it's either all going to be good or all go to crap soon enough, and we'll know that soon enough. That's why preseason matters, at least showing up. That's why the regular season matters. Don't take the third game of the season off, please. Then we'll have a better sign.
Yeah, take the 30th game of the season off.
Once every 30 games off. Hey, I say right now, if Jimmy wants to take 4 games off this season and give me 78, no issue here.
Yeah, no, what's the over and under on him playing 70 plus games?
I would take the under there, just because you're talking about a 10-game increase from last year. I think the fact that they've set this 65-game rule for awards, and that Jimmy Butler knows if he does go into free agency, it's good to be all NBA. It's good to be maybe one of the all defensive teams. It's good to be recognized and have that on your resume. So I would say the over under is probably 65, because that's the award threshold. I would go with the over, but again, because you and I are old, you just had another birthday. When you get old, sometimes your body tells you how much you can play. I just want this, Big O. I want honest absences. If you're injured, fine. But I don't want the day off. I don't want the load management. I don't want any of that. He has to prove it again. He's in position. He still can cash in, but he's got to prove it.
Yeah, and that's what I fear the most of this season is I don't think his body can hold up by playing real Jimmy basketball on a nightly basis in the regular season. I think his body will break down.
Well, and you know what, Big O?
That's
and
that's that I fear about that.
And that's fascinating, because what if the Heat get in a position? This is like bizarro world. What if the Heat get in a position where Jimmy knows he has to play to be seen as a player who could be out there, to be seen as a player who can win awards, and the Heat say, we got to sit you. We need you for the playoffs. It could mean the exact opposite of what we did. So you know what? This is what happens, and you're seeing it with your Dolphins now and with their injured older players. It is such a different situation trying to manage older players through regular seasons. We're seeing it with the Dolphins. Now we're seeing it with the Heat. Whether Beckham comes back at his age, can do something, maybe giving the first 4 games off, not such a bad idea if he has a great final 4 games. This whole load management thing, teams have a lot to do with it as well.
All right. Tyler Herro, did somebody have a conversation with him before you guys talked to him here in Media Day? Because he was more accepting whether it was starting or coming off the bench, whereas in the last couple of years, he was adamant about being a starter. And then some of the talk was from some of you guys was, they're worried about his feelings and this and that. The tone is different. So what are we expecting? Because, common sense tells you the best Tyler is the Tyler coming off the bench.
Tyler was totally debriefed. I don't think it was Pat Riley who did it. I think it was Tyler's people who realized you've got to establish an image. It almost seems like political season. All we're talking about is images here. But he was told to say the right things. But I did pull Tyler aside. I'm going to have a story in the Sun Sentinel on it soon. And he said, Tyler, what you said is all well and good, and I don't give a rat's ass, no offense, if you start or play off the bench. But do you want to be limited to being a catch-and-shoot player? Last year in the locker room, there was one point in the season where Tyler sort of very gruffly turned to us and goes, well, I'm just a catch-and-shoot player. That's who they said I am. He still wants to maximize his game, and there's going to be a very interesting push-pull. How can Tyler Herro show he's more well-rounded, but how can the Heat get the type of play out of Tyler they need? This team takes entirely too many two-point shots. Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler, Terry Rozier, Jaime Jaquez Jr., that's their sweet spot. Tyler is a very good three-point shooter. The Heat want him to focus on either that or finally getting to the foul line. He doesn't want to be pigeonholed. He wants to show he's a complete player. So he talked the right talk. Now I want to see what happens on the court. And I want to see if the Heat will be more open-minded to Tyler's possibilities.
Here's the problem I have with all of that.
Okay.
I don't give a shit about that. You know what I would say to Tyler? Bro, be available first and foremost.
Agree.
That's your biggest accomplishment. I don't give a shit if you're a great three-point shooter or if you're an all-around player or if you can pass. I need you to play good basketball, but I need you to be available, dude. That should be your only focus. Let Spoelstra use you this shit that we got with the Dolphins, that these players pull themselves out of the games at any time they want. And, I mean, I've never seen that bullshit ever in my life. For me, Tyler Herro shouldn't even be worried about what kind of player I am. Bro, you know what you are? You're a soft-ass player that breaks down, that your body's fragile. Why don't you work on being tough and lasting and be available, and then we'll find out what kind of player you can be after that. But first and foremost, for Tyler Herro, it's availability is his major problem right now.
I agree. Pat Riley agrees. I think Tyler agrees. And you know what? I was listening before I came on with the Accurate Pembroke Pines report, and you were talking about how you still sometimes have to reference back for the right way of doing things to Don Shula. Well, here's the deal. From Don Shula's era and Pat Riley's era, if you're injured, you don't play. If you're hurt, you play. There's a difference. Yeah. If you physically cannot play, no one's forcing anyone out there with broken bones or anything like that. No one's pushing to it through concussion protocol. You have to get right. But if you're sore or ailing or aching, this whole load management era has to stop. I know 82 games are a lot. Well, when players are getting paid upwards of $500,000 a game, and soon as next year, players are going to earn as much as $1 million a game, then maybe you push yourself through. I agree. Injured, sit out. Hurt, don't want to hear it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. And that's why, to me, everything about Tyler is really about availability, dude.
And Jimmy. And several others on this roster. Yes, and that's the whole thing. I still don't know what this team could be because I don't know how long this team can hold it together. It's a house of cards. You got a guy like Bam who shows up every night and busts his butt to get out there and do what he can on defense, growing on the offensive side as a leader now as captain. And sometimes I feel like Bam is left on an island by guys who come and go, who show or don't show, and it's not right. The only constants for the Miami Heat that I feel I can count on right now are Bam Adebayo and Erik Spoelstra. Everyone else, prove it. Show it.
Duncan. I think Duncan, he's had some injuries, but when he's not injured, he's turned into a damn consistent player. I really like how Duncan has.
I do, but he'll always be, God bless him, a complimentary player. I'm talking about the core and what it's going to take.
But but he has turned into a consistent complimentary player, a more complete complimentary player. We were so critical of him being so one-dimensional. Right. I have to back him up nowadays because he deserves the love because he went back to the drawing board and really improved his game and became a real asset for this team where it went from a contract that was an albatross to now an absolute bargain. You know what I mean? And that's all on Duncan and Spo too, because obviously Spo must have motivated his ass to get to that point.
And I was talking to Duncan yesterday, and I think he's going to challenge me to tennis, so I don't want to get him hurt on the court. I don't want to be the cause of any of this. We will see.
Yeah, he's good. All right, what do you got going on in the Sentinel so folks can check you out?
I got a lot going on because there's a lot going on with this team. Just posted a story in Nasir Little and how the Heat are trying to reclaim another sort of wayward first-round pick. A year ago, R.J. Hampton, they produced into a player who contributed among the injuries. And it's interesting. Nasir Little has no guarantee. Nasir Little probably has no chance of sticking on opening night. But what the Heat have shown a player is, if you come here, we will make you better. We will help you restart and jumpstart your career. I'm telling you, the Pat Riley School for Wayward Children is still alive and well, and players know if they want to maximize who they can be, they come to this team, they put it all out on the line. So you're seeing that right now. Today's Sun Sentinel, I wrote about how Erik Spoelstra is commiserating with Mike McDaniel. He likes him a lot. They might be different people as far as success in coaching, but he sort of feels for him. That's the one thing about Erik. He empathizes. He has that with so many of the coaches in South Florida. He appreciates what it takes to succeed, even if he goes about and does it in a different way. So I wrote about that. And then I wrote about Josh Richardson, the only player at camp who still is limited. And you know what? They might have a decision to make there soon because they have other wings. They have Jaime. They have Alec Burks in camp. They have Pelle Larson, the rookie. And Josh Richardson, if he doesn't show up pretty soon, could find himself sort of out of the mix again after being a feel-good story with last season's return.
And by the way, I know Jimmy is Jimmy, so he's going to do, he's going to go to his own beat of his own drum and all that. Sure. But having said all that, you can tell there is a level of respect, and there is a connection between Spo and Jimmy too. A legit,
there has to be. There has to be the connection between you and your leading man. Look, say what you want about Mike McDaniel and Tua. And say what you want about Brian Flores or not and what you thought. But Brian Flores never had that connection. And without that connection of leading men, you cannot succeed. You have to be in lockstep with your leading players. And I got to tell you, Spoelstra is so un-Riley-like in that. Pat Riley sometimes couldn't do that. He couldn't put up with the BS of Shaq and almost got into a fight before Alonzo Mourning broke it up. He had trouble with players not towing the line. Erik Spoelstra is more of a modern-day coach. But I'll tell you this. Erik Spoelstra also draws a line, a no BS zone with him. I think that's the biggest difference between Erik Spoelstra and Mike McDaniel. And you know what, Big O? I'll say it this way, because as a parent,
Spo has a way of, he still will go to the extent of maybe more understanding the player, whereas Riley was still more about, there was the separation of church and state, no matter what.
There's still a difference there in that I think McDaniel wants to be his players' friends. You know it, I know it as parents. We love our kids. We're friends with our kids. But at some time, I'm the dad, you're the kid. And you have to have that line. That's what Erik does. He will meet you, but it's never going to be a case where he'll let you manipulate. I think Mike McDaniel got himself caught in a little of that by wanting to be everyone's buddy. Erik Spoelstra is respected. I don't know how many players in this roster will go, Eric's my buddy. I think Mike McDaniel tried to be that, and I think that when times are good, it's a wonderful thing. When the going gets rough, that's when it can turn south in a hurry. I think that's the difference between what's going on with the Dolphins and what typically goes on with the Heat. Even Paul Maurice, same way.
You can't pivot to the hard ass at that. Whereas when you're able to walk the fine line that, hey, you understand that I'll be the dick if you don't do this, right? I'll be all right with you if you do this. And that's Spo.
And that's great, coaches. And you know what, Big O? Think of Paul Maurice and how friendly he was with his players at the championship celebration. But remember 2 years ago, that game against the Maple Leafs, when he eviscerated his players on the bench when they were getting their butts kicked, because there's a line there. And at some point, you have to be the parent, you have to be the coach, you have to be the leader. I'm really curious. And again, he looks like an interesting dude, but I'm really curious that next level for Mike McDaniel, if he can get there also and understand it's more important that you lead than you buddy up to your guys also.
Yeah,
Shula was great at that.
I think the line Maurice used was, guys, some profanity was needed at that moment or something. I'm paraphrasing, but it was
was his profanity on Fort Lauderdale Beach about 6 months ago or 5 months ago when they won the cup. But you can see what it takes to succeed at all levels.
Yeah, definitely. There's no doubt about that, and that's the reason why I'm such a big Spo guy, because he's impeccable, man. He is just like you are, sir. Follow him on Twitter at Ira Heatbeat. And, of course, subscribe to the South Florida Sun Sentinel. Ira, as always, thank you, sir. We will catch up next week. Enjoy the
now
Bahamas.
I got to go find a $19 bottle of water at this overpriced resort. And I will catch you next week back from home on the Acura Pembroke Pines Report. Thanks, Big O.
You got it, my brother. There you go. Safe travels. Enjoy the Bahamas. All right. And when we talk about Acura Pembroke Pines, folks, they've got it going on right now at 15601 Pines Boulevard, just off of I-75 in Pines. And they've got a service center there that is second to none. My guys, Mike Chan and Jordan Ferber, they've got that place down pat. So if you own or lease an Acura, make sure you take it there. And right now, we've got the Happy New Model Year sale going on right now. 3.9% financing for 60 months. For the 2025 Integra, you can get it for $339 a month. The ZDX, get electrified. $479 a month for the lease feature. 0.9% financing for 72 months. And the RDX, we still have some 2024 models. 3.9% financing for 60 months. Go see Larry Schlossberg, Pat Nasto, Tony Stampone, all the great people out there getting it done at Craig Zinn's Acura of Pembroke Pines.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.